Welcome to this week's edition of The Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, and joined as always by Dick Corbett, head coach for Notre Dame Football, Brian Kelly. Slow start offensively. Defensively, though, your team, I thought, kept you in it a little bit early on. What were you seeing when you went down 10-0?
Yeah, it was interesting. We were just a play away here or there. It just, I don't even think it was out of sync as much as, we had a couple of situations where one guy didn't make a play or, we didn't make the right read. It just was one of those kind of frustrating things where, we felt like we had some good looks, but, we just didn't have all 11 players playing together. And that had been, at times this year, one of the frustrating things. But we have to realize we have a lot of young players. At one time, I think we had 6 or 7, freshmen on the field, and sometimes that needs to be one where you show patience. And I thought Tommy Rees did a great job of coming back to some plays that weren't as successful, but he repeated them, and it got us some consistency on offense that we needed.
I want to ask about one defensive play when you're able to force the ball out at the 1-yard line. Your defense didn't give up on the play and then held Virginia Tech to 3, so it was 10-0 instead of 14-0. Did you feel that on the sideline?
Yeah, there's no doubt. That was a huge play for us to keep them out of the end zone. And it's first and goal from the 1, and you want to talk about resolve. I mean, that's when you talk about really rising up, and I think that momentum really served us well. To hold them 3 points right there was a big turning point in the game.
So second quarter starts, you go to the freshman Tyler Buckner, and for the first time this year, we see the entire playbook, it seems like, or at least more of the playbook given to him. What sparked that decision, and then what gave you the confidence to open things up with him offensively?
Well, I think we needed to establish a run game. That was more important. We didn't want to go out there and just start throwing the football all over the place because one of their strengths was in the back end of their defense. And so running the football was important, so we started with that in mind, and that let's get a good running game going. Because look, if you're running the football and they're chasing Tyler Buckner around, you're going to slow down the pass rush, and that's what ended up happening. We slowed down a very good pass rush by running the football, and then it opened up other things for Tyler to throw the football.
He made a great throw to Kevin Austin, as you said, set up by the run. What'd you see on that play, and then later him able to run the ball in with his legs?
Well, it goes to what we were just talking about. It was actually a play that had a run attached to a read for a throw, and they were up in an 8-man front, and they pressed the outside, so he had a run throw option on it, and it was press coverage, pulls the ball, throws it, and we get the great completion down to about the 3-yard line.
So it's 10-7 after he runs it in, and then your defense does a great job holding him there. I want to talk about the 2-minute drill, or it was really 90 seconds or so. Yeah. To see him orchestrate that 2-minute drill, how much confidence did that give you in him to keep him out there the way he was playing?
It was good because we sat him down. We talked about a couple of plays that we thought would be available to him, and he's such a smart kid, and he remembers everything that you go over with him. And we were able to hit Avery on a seam route. We wanted to get the ball into the seams, and great throw into the seam, gets us a big chunk play down the field. And I think those are the little things that you're looking for in terms of the development of Tyler, is pushing the ball vertically down the field, and he was able to do that in that drive.
Capped off by a touchdown pass to Kyron Williams. We're going to look at it later in Irish Intel, but what'd you see on that play? Again, just seemed like a quick read towards the goal line.
Yeah, so, down in the goal line area, you're really going to be confronted with either man or some kind of zone bracket coverage. He got the right read, saw it immediately, got the ball out quickly. One thing that Tyler does really well is the ball comes out quickly, so fast that it's hard to defend him, and the defense could not make the adjustment of defending it quick enough. Really good read, nice touchdown.
So it's 14-10. They get a field goal before halftime and tack on another one on the other side of the halftime. So they had a brief 16-14 lead. Defense makes their big takeaway with Tariq Bracy and that interception. What'd you see on that play?
It was interesting because we had talked to Tariq. He was getting a little bit too high up on the shoulder of the defender and missed a couple opportunities. We told him to just stay below the cut, and he did, came underneath the route. Great interception, sets up the offense now in real good field position.
4 plays, 29 yards, but the Kyron Williams touchdown, I think every week we talk about it. There's at least one play where obviously it was blocked well, but he took it over at the end. Just how emblematic is that of the kind of player he is?
Well, it's interesting because he told Tyler, give me the ball, because the ball's supposed to go out the other way to Logan Diggs, who's wide open in the flat. But he was convinced that he was going to run through 2 or 3 people, and he did. He wanted the ball in that situation. Tyler Buckner recognized that you give it to the alpha in that situation, and he made the rest happen, getting us into the end zone.
The one big mistake that Tyler made was the pick 6. And of course, there's plenty of coaching moments throughout a game, but freshman quarterback, just what was the message to him after that in a big environment? I mean, that was a big momentum swinging play.
Yeah, stay through your progression. We had gone over that same exact route earlier because he tried to fit it into Avery Davis in double coverage. And we reminded him there's an individual route on the backside. If you don't like the look front side, just go backside. And he immediately just threw it backside without taking a good look at it. So we said, listen, go through your progression. If it's not good, you'll have it on the backside, and you'll have plenty of time for the receiver to protect the route as well. Little quick, little fast, probably went through the progression a little too fast, assuming it was going to be there. Great lesson learned, and it's probably one that we won't have to repeat again in the next 3 years because he's that committed and that astute and understanding the game.
Virginia Tech, I thought, did a great job when they got the ball in the mid portion of the fourth quarter, strung together a great drive to make it 29-21 with about 4 minutes left. At that time, what was the feeling like on the sideline? You also had to go back to Jack Cohn because Buckner was banged up a little bit. So what was it like on the sideline knowing you're down 8 and needed to score in a 2-point?
Yeah, so we throw the interception. We had a wheel route coming out of the backfield to Logan Diggs, and Tyler just, overthrew it a little bit. It got deflected. Obviously, they come in and they score off of that, and he landed awkwardly on his ankle, so he wasn't able to get back in there at full strength. So we went back to Jack. There was no panic on the sideline. The guys were like, all right, let's go. This is 8 points. We'll get the 2-point play. And Jack hits George Takis in a seam route. George makes a great catch. Hits Avery. Hits, look, Braden Lindsey had gotten no catches the whole game. He stays patient, stays committed during the game, gets a couple of big catches, gets us down into a position where we can score, and it was a great drive by Jack and a very patient drive, and that everybody was part of that last drive.
You kind of took my point, but I was just going to ask. You hear names like Lindsey, Takis, Davis, because Michael Mayer's not available, and Tyree was banged up. When those guys step up in that moment as a coach, I mean, how much pride does that bring you when your team is able to fill the gaps like that? Yeah,
it's kind of emblematic of this group, right? There's freshmen. There's veteran guys that haven't played a lot of football, but they take great pride, and there's a lot of tradition. This is a team that's been in the college football players 2 out of the last 3 years. So, they expect to win, but they know that you got to work to win, and you got to go make plays to win. And so, when their number's called, they expect to make some plays.
So the Avery Davis touchdown, you still need the 2-point conversion. And that was, I think, one of the more memorable plays of the game. Talk me through how that play broke down and what ended up being an amazing catch by Kevin Austin.
Well, we got kind of caught short-handed. So, Chris Tyree was out. Kyron Williams, was out of the game earlier because of the targeting penalty against him. So both of our 2-point plays included those 2 guys in it. So we were down. You don't normally carry 3 2-point plays. We carried 2 of them. Our third play was our best 4th down play. So we carried a 4th down play, and they actually went and played zone coverage into it. We were expecting man. So Jack had to keep the play alive. And by scrambling and keeping it alive, he brought Kevin Austin all the way back from the other side of the formation to him, saw him in the back of his eye, and just put it in the air and hoped that he could go up and make a play. And Kevin went up with those long arms and was able to make a great catch and securing the football and the 2-point play.
Still a few minutes left in this game. Your defense did a great job. Got the ball right back, used a couple timeouts, and you have a chance now with plenty of time and Jack to drive the ball down the field. It seems to be in this team's DNA now that if the game's close late, you have to feel pretty confident like they're going to get it done in those situations.
Yeah, I'd like to try to get it done a little bit earlier. But as I said, to our media, that's why they give you 4 quarters. But you don't want to obviously, have every game go down to this. But, I've been in this a long time. Sometimes it takes that, right? And, I thought we did a good job of managing the clock. We saved the timeout. I think you got to save 1. I don't know if you need 2 or 3, but we had 1, which you need, and we had enough time. And so let's get back at it. And Jack picked up where he left off and did a really good job of getting us down in field goal position.
Second time this year, Jonathan Doris hit the big field goal, 48 yards in this one. I mean, you guys have so much confidence in him, but again, what did he prove to you in another hostile environment, knocking one down?
Well, he proved to me that he can overcome the coach, because I wanted them to, there was a strobe light that was pointed right at him, and I wanted them to take that strobe light down. And so they stopped the game, and I really iced my own kicker. So despite the head coach at Notre Dame icing his own kicker, he looked at me and says, "Coach, let's just play." So I waved off the referee, and we played, and he kicked it despite me. And that's just going to go down as one of those, just stay out of the way, coach, and let these guys play.
So you win the game 5-1. He gets a game ball. Jack Cohn gets a game ball. You go into the bye week. It's been an incredibly entertaining first half of the season. I want to just know where your head was at the end of the first half after you get that done. Where did you assess your team at that point?
Yeah, we talked about at half, we had, obviously we made a little run. They came back, but I said, look, this is going to be 4 quarters. You're going to have to keep playing. They're not going anywhere. You're going to have to understand that this is the nature of how we play right now, and just keep battling and believe in each other, stay together, play for each other, and they certainly did that.
Coach, thanks. You're listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com. Welcome back to The Brian Kelly Show. It's time for this week's installment of Irish Intel, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for Irish Intel, where we go inside the play. Coach, let's take a look at this touchdown run from Kyron Williams here, close to the goal line, about the 10-yard line. Really interesting play design. Just talk me through what the options are here.
Yeah, so Tyler has the option to pull this off the defensive end at the top of the screen. If he comes down really hard, Logan Diggs is an option for him to throw it. Or he can hand it off. And in this instance, he decides to hand it off to Kyren. I think Kyren wanted him to hand it off to him, but as you can see, if he pulls it, he's got an easy score, or he can throw a touchdown pass to Logan Diggs. He took the harder route here, and that was handing it off. But as I said, I don't think he had much choice. I think the captain said, "Give me the ball." But he makes something happen here. 1, 2, 3, and touchdown.
So, Coach, this is the 2-point conversion play that ties the game. Obviously an amazing individual effort by Kevin Austin, but talk me through all the things that take place before to force it into that position.
Well, we ran out of 2-point plays because we ran out of personnel. Both our backs, Tyree, was in one of our 2-point plays, and Kyron's in the other. So we came back to a similar play. We started with Braden to the field. We motioned him across to see whether it was zone or it was man. Here's what happens. 14 starts to run across and then stops and goes back. So at first we thought it was man-to-man, and then he goes back. So we know it's zone coverage. Here's what happens. It confuses Jack. If Jack just stays to the boundary where Lindsey's going, he probably has an easy touchdown. But he comes off the read, he has Kevin right out of the break. But it confused him because he saw the corner running over halfway and then going back, so he wasn't sure what he had. And so he turns this down too quickly, scrambles, but he ends up coming back to Kevin because Kevin gets all the way back across the field and makes an incredible catch going high up and above. Now, he says he was going for Kevin. I saw George Takis in the back of the end zone too, so we're going to stick to his story and say he was looking for him all the time. That's who we should have thrown to in the very first look. He ended up getting to him maybe a little bit later.
It's now time for this week's Look Ahead segment. And as always, we're joined by Bill Reese. Bill, appreciate you taking the time as always after the bye week. Before we get to USC, which everyone I know is always very excited for, let's look back, because before the bye week, we had one of the most exciting games of the entire season for Notre Dame with that 32-29 victory over Virginia Tech. Let's just talk big picture. To go into the bye week 5-1, how much momentum do you think that gave you guys as you come out now for the second half of the season?
Well, that win was huge in a hostile environment, down 8 points with under 4 minutes to go. And to pull out the victory in regulation really showed a lot of resolve for our football team. Not only did the offense put back-to-back drives, the defense came up with a huge 3 and out, and it was really complimentary football as John Doerr kicked the winning field goal. So it was really, really big. Everyone says that your bye comes at a good time, and this was a good time for us to, at the halfway point of the season, get a little bit of a break, get a couple extra days preparing for USC, and most importantly, just get rest, for the entire team.
There were plenty of storylines in that game. We'll try to hit on as many as we can, but the first one I wanted to ask is just about the freshman Tyler Buckner, obviously coming in the second quarter. To that point in the year, it'd really been a pretty limited package that he'd been featured in on the field, but it seemed like, if not all the playbook, a lot more of the playbook was available to him. So what did you see from him that enabled him to perform at a high level, executing more plays from the playbook?
Well, Tyler's very talented, and as he gets more reps and becomes more comfortable, first of all, playing college football, and secondly, playing within this offense, you're going to see his talents continue to ascend. He just really is a very poised. He's a little bit of a gamer. He gets out there, nothing's too big for him. He's very competitive. You can really see that when he runs the football. There is no pullback on his part. He's going to have to, take some sliding lessons, I think, just to, avoid some hits. But he's extremely competitive. He has an outstanding arm. It's just putting everything together, from footwork and reads and just being more comfortable in the offense.
The other thing that stuck out at quarterback, obviously, was that when Buckner got banged up, Jack Cohn had been pulled, maybe had sat for 2+ hours or so, comes in to orchestrate those 2 drives you alluded to tie the game, obviously the big 2-point conversion, and then the drive to set up the field goal. What did that tell you and the entire staff about his demeanor? I know that everyone's raved about how supportive all the quarterbacks have been of each other, but in a game where you're yanked out and then he comes back in the way he did, that had to be impressive.
Well, Jack, that's the way he's been since the day he's been here. He's been unflappable. He is an extremely tough-minded guy. So that wasn't surprising that when he re-entered the game, he was hot, ready to go. And I think he was 7 of 9 on the last 2 drives. And, it's like anything else. Sometimes when you're on the sidelines and you're watching, you see things and see the game a little bit differently, a little bit different perspective. And I think when he re-entered the game, he was sharp and obviously very impressive in those last 2 drives.
180 yards rushing for Notre Dame, which I know has been a real point of emphasis. The running game hasn't maybe necessarily been where it has been in years past. In the early portion of this game, obviously a lot of offensive line turnover. What did you see that maybe enabled the offense to run the ball a little bit more effectively in the final game before the bye?
Well, I think, the addition of Joe Alt on the left side, a little bit more physical than what we've had over there. Andrew Kristofic, a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical as well at left guard. And we really did a good job on our double teams. We got real good movement, and it was the best game by far, for Kyren. And, he ran, like a guy possessed. He was just, he wasn't going to be denied. And he really took the game over, did a great job in every phase as he always does. But this was really a big game for him. And the combination of the line just being together a little bit longer and practicing together more. This doesn't happen overnight. You don't lose the type of players that we did in the offensive line and then automatically hit the ground running. It takes time, and hopefully, this will continue in the second half of the season.
Last thing on the offense before we focus on the defense real quick is just on the final drive or the final pair of drives to see guys like George Takis, Logan Diggs in the mix when Michael Mayer wasn't available, Chris Tyree was banged up. It seems to give the team a lot of confidence at how deep they are across the board. When you see guys making plays like that in that environment, how encouraging is that going into the second half, knowing these guys are making big plays and getting experience in really key moments?
Well, it was encouraging. Plus, it was impressive. George Takis hadn't had a catch, and he, comes up with a huge play. Braden Lenzy has 2 big catches and a run after the catch. Logan Diggs has been one of the more impressive athletes that we have on the football team, and he got his opportunity and didn't blink. It's really an encouraging part to look at. Especially with the young offensive players that I think there were 7 true freshmen that were playing in that game in Blacksburg. So, a lot of good things to look forward to in the future.
I think it's always easy to overlook the defense in a big comeback. And what they did, you mentioned the key 3 and out. Also, there was a big play, I thought, early in the game where they forced the ball out at the 1-yard line and then got a goal line stop to keep it at 10-0 instead of 14-0 at the time. When I talked to head coach Brian Kelly, he was very quick to acknowledge that was a huge point in the game to keep the damage limited. It's halfway through the season with Marcus Freeman. They seem to really be getting into a rhythm in this system. What stuck out to you in general from that game in Blacksburg from them?
Well, as you mentioned, that goal line stand was huge. You trade, 3 points for a possible 7 down there. That was a big switch in momentum for us. And then I think really just overall stopping the run. Virginia Tech became very one-dimensional. They had to kind of go into some bag of tricks and, quarterbacks scrambling around for yardage. But we really did an excellent job of stopping the run, just stopping big plays in general. So it was, a great effort. Overall, I thought the defense played very well Saturday night.
Last guy we got to touch on is Jonathan Dorr, who hit another big game-winning kick, second true road game of the year, and both have ended the same way pretty much, with him knocking in not just a field goal to give you the lead or win the game, but from distance too. 48 yards in Blacksburg. That has been impressive to see. The coaching staff just trusts him so much in those moments, don't they?
They really do, and rightfully so. He's made so many big kicks in his career. He's had an outstanding career, and he's just won a lot of games. And I don't think it matters if it's 18 yards or 48 yards. He's going to, in that situation, he's going to step up and nail it.
All right, let's shift our focus a little bit here. Every time this game rolls around, I think everyone gets very excited for good reason. It's one of the best rivalries, not just in college sports, but maybe in all of sports. When USC comes down, I'll start with this. Just what comes to mind for you? What gets you most excited about this rivalry?
Well, it's the greatest intersectional rivalry in college football. It's East versus West. It's big man versus big man. It's just so many great players have played in this game. And, as a player, you're really judged on how you play in this game. And guys come to Notre Dame to play against USC and vice versa. So it's a great rivalry, and looking forward to it. You look forward to it every year.
Trojans are coming in 3-3. They've shown some flashes. They've also been a little bit inconsistent. They, of course, made the coaching change going from Clay Helton to Dante Williams. So just in general, big picture, before we drill in a little bit, what have you seen from them? And I think an interesting question is, has there been any maybe shift in how they're approaching games after the coaching change as well?
You haven't really been able to see it, although, you haven't been able to sit in the stands and get a vibe watching a team live. But on film, you really don't see much difference. They're playing hard. They're very talented. Sometimes a coaching change can be for the better, and they've had a week off as well to regroup and kind of get some guys healthy as well. So, we're going to see a very good and very talented team Saturday night.
Let's talk quarterback. Keaton Slovas, experience, completes about 70% of his passes for his career. I think anytime you're going to beat Notre Dame in South Bend, you got to bring a skilled and experienced quarterback to town, and they have that. So what does he do well that you guys have to look out for?
Well, he's played here before. He played here as a true freshman and played well. He's a beautiful, accurate passer. When he has time and can set his feet, he puts the ball really where the defense can't get it, and really only his receiver can go get it. And he just has a very nice timing and touch on his throws. He's very confident in his ability to, find the open receiver. They do a good job of spreading out the field so he can scan the field and go from front to back side. And as he's gotten more experience, he's become, very adept at doing that and doing it very well.
I think the skill player that stands out the most is probably Drake London on the offensive side of the ball for USC. Almost 140 yards per game through the air receiving. When Coach Kelly was talking to the media this week, he said, you're going to need a game plan for him. So I'm not asking for the game plan. I don't need you to give it away specifically, but what does he do? Notre Dame's seen some good receivers this year, and just what is going to be the key to at least limiting him? You might not shut him down, but at least containing him in this game.
Well, that's really the key. I think, he's going to go out and get his catches. It's like a scorer in basketball. He's going to get his points, but you've just got to eliminate him from just having that super explosive play or those types of things. His size, his height, he's a very good basketball player. That gives him a real advantage. And he and Slovas have a very good chemistry. And, Slovas knows where to put the ball, and they're very good at 50-50 balls, back shoulders, slants. Very good timing, very good, as I said, chemistry between those two. So you're just going to have to, make sure that, he just doesn't have that type of game that can change the outcome.
The rushing attack's been pretty consistent this year, 130 yards per game, about 4.5 yards per carry. A few different guys touch the ball. Just in general, what's the key to their rushing attack, and what will be, I guess, be maybe more importantly for Notre Dame, what do they have to key on to contain it in this game?
Well, they've really made a concerted effort in the air raid to try to run the ball better. And they have. They've got an experienced offensive line. They're big, especially inside. Two younger guys are out at tackle, but are good players. So they did get a grad transfer from Texas, Ingram, who's had a nice first half of the season. He runs hard. He's got good avoid and escapability. And he can run with power as well. So they've done a nice job of, when they can outnumber the box, they're going to run the football, and Ingram's done a nice job with it. So, they've been dramatically improved at running the football, and it's their way of staying balanced. And I would guess they're going to try to do that Saturday night as well.
Last thing we'll just touch on is defensively on that side of the ball. Schematically, what can fans expect when they watch them, and maybe who are a couple of the guys that might stick out that are going to look to make plays against Notre Dame?
Well, Drake Jackson, their outside linebacker, is a exceptional talent. Very good pass rusher, very long. He's fast. He has, I think, 18 pressures on the season. He's really done an excellent job. And their front seven is athletic and active. And in the back end, they're as athletic and as long and as fast as just about any secondary we'll see. It's just, being able to play with the consistency week in and week out has been their biggest challenge. And when they have played well, and especially on the road, they played very well. So again, with this being a rivalry game and it's Notre Dame USC, I would expect, we'll see the very best from their defenders.
Well, Bill, as always, we appreciate the time. It's great to see you again after a bye week off, and we're looking forward to a great second half of Notre Dame football.
We are too. Thanks, Tony.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irishography. So, Jack, take me back to the Virginia Tech game. You were out on the bench, called upon to lead the team to get that game-tying drive. How were you able to stay ready and come through for Notre Dame?
Honestly, I just focused on doing my job. I was extremely excited to come back in and get an opportunity to do better than I did earlier in the game. And I just tried to do my job and let the playmakers make plays and trusted the guys in front of me, and they did a great job.
After the game, you were awarded the game ball. Brian Kelly was just so reverential about how you performed in that environment. What did it feel like to get that game ball and get a chance to celebrate in front of your team?
Yeah, it meant a lot to me just to be recognized for that. And I know there's a lot of history here with game balls and great players that have gotten those. So to be a part of that history and tradition is pretty cool.
So there's been a lot of talk about how tight this quarterback room is. I just want to know from your perspective, what keeps you guys so bonded and how important is that support that you guys show one another?
Yeah, I think it's just a room of just a bunch of great guys, and I'm so thankful to be a part of them. I don't think there's many places in the country where you could find a quarterback room that really doesn't have egos and it just wants the best for the team and helps each other out. So it's been extremely special for me, and I'm so thankful to get to know them and just be a part of them.
I know your Notre Dame experience has been a little bit shorter than maybe some of the other players having come here from Wisconsin, but it's a place I know you've always wanted to be. What's it been like in less than a year? What's been maybe the favorite thing you've had to experience at Notre Dame?
Yeah, it's been amazing so far. I mean, just to come here and be able to be a part of this culture and this community. It's a very tight-knit community, and you're just surrounded by the best in the country, whether it's football players, whether it's students, anything you find, it's a bunch of great people, and it's been so cool for me.
This is obviously a huge game coming up against USC, one of the iconic rivalries in really all of sports. To get a chance to be involved with it in prime time, under the lights, what are you most looking forward to going into that game?
Honestly, just playing a great team like USC. I mean, obviously there's a lot of history here, and for me to be able to be part of this history is pretty cool and special to me, and I'm super excited for it.
Jack, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's final check-in.
Wondering if you can bring us up to date on the injury situations for Mayer, Buckner, Tyree, Lacy, and if there are any other ones that we might be missing. And also, my question for you is, there's a report out of LA that Dart may be back. So what does that do as far as preparing for between Dart and Slovas at quarterback for USC?
Okay, let's get it all in here. Let's start with the players. Mayer will be starting for us. He's had a good week. We expect him to, contribute, and we'll need him to contribute for us. We're excited about him being back for us. Buckner's had a good week. We're back to, getting him involved in the offense. So he's available and will be part of what we do offensively. Jacob Lacy has been limited this week, but we expect that he'll be able to give us something on Saturday. But we'll make that decision probably as we go through today's practice, see how he looks, and then game day. But he practiced yesterday. I don't think he's 100%, but I think he can give us some quality reps. Chris Tyree worked out a little bit yesterday. Running backs, they've got to be at 100%. I don't know that he's 100% right now. So that'll probably be a game time decision on Chris as well. I think that seems to be all of the injury information relative to what you asked. He very talented quarterback as well. We watched his film, and live arm. Slovas obviously we believe is going to be the starter. If they get into any kind of situation where they don't feel like the offense is moving, he certainly go in there. He's just probably a little bit more dynamic on the edge, can get out and run and move around. But they're both outstanding quarterbacks. I don't know that there'd be that much of a difference in terms of our preparation, other than, he's a guy that certainly can pull the ball down and be much more effective, in scrambling situations.
And Priester, you're up next.
Brian, I know you went through a self-scout. I wonder if there are any players that you have determined that you want to see a little bit more on game day, not necessarily freshmen per se, but now that you've reached the midway point. And then secondly, with Brendan Clark's decision, how did you handle scout team quarterback this week?
In terms of self-scouting, I don't know that there was a situation where we needed to feature somebody more as much as we needed to, look at effectiveness within our our entire offense, defense, and special teams. So I think it was wanting to make sure that we were balanced, by formation, that we were not giving away any tendencies one way or the other. We looked at, our first couple of drives in games. We looked at first quarter scoring. We looked at our red zone and third down efficiency. So again, not as much as, a particular player, as much as overall, where are the areas that we can be more effective in coaching and schematically. Obviously losing Brendan, forced us to, have a scout team situation, a demonstration situation where, we wanted to continue to have a really competitive situation. So we did a little bit more this week against our defense. We call it pick it period, where we pick some plays that we have in our offense that are similar to USC, and we run them as our offense, kind of high school related, I guess, in a sense. And we wanted to give them some real good looks. So we picked up a little bit of that in terms of ones versus ones going against each other. And we would mimic some of USC's plays. And then we rotated Buckner and Pine went down for a couple of periods when we weren't in team time, and gave those guys a look down there because that's what we needed to do. So we managed it within. Those guys were great, and we helped our defense as well.
Tim O'Malley, you're up next.
Hi, Coach. Just two from me. Number one is Simeone Flemister, reinstated by you after not traveling in the last game. And number two, you've seen so many opponents off of bye weeks these last 3 years, especially. Do you notice that they install different things for you? Is it noticeable on either offense or defense that is how they use their weeks to prepare for you?
Yeah, Simeone is available to us this weekend, and will be available. So, certainly there are wrinkles that we see on these bye weeks, and we're quite adapted. A lot of people talk about what our first quarter scoring situation is. Well, a lot of times we're making adjustments in the first quarter and at halftime because sometimes it requires that. Some of it is ineffectiveness as well, and not making efficient plays. So, I mean, it's been the nature of it for the last few years that, teams are coming off bye weeks, and, we have to adjust to some things that we're seeing for the first time. But that's the nature of it. And, we kind of adjust as we go.
As a reminder, please use the raise hand function if you want to ask a question. We will go to Eric Hanson next.
Hey, Coach, I got two for you. The first one is kind of a follow-up to the running back Simeone situation. Is Diggs maybe your number two option if Tyree isn't able to go? Has he progressed to that point? Would you like to get Estime involved? The second question involves kind of your developmental work last week, and it's a little bit related to, I think, what Tim asked earlier, but I'm going deeper down the depth chart. Are there some freshmen who haven't played that have impressed you that we haven't seen? For example, Rocco, Kia, and maybe some of the defensive backs.
Yeah. So right now, I would tell you that we have confidence in both Diggs and Simeone if Chris isn't able to go at a high level. Chris could go right now, but I don't know that he's at the level that we want to put him in the game yet. And so we need today, Thursday, and Friday. And my guess is that's going to be a game time decision. Lance is going to have to take a good look at him and talk to Chris and see, if he feels like he can do everything. A lot of this is with the running back. It's when you're pushing on somebody. It's when you're trying to break a tackle. He looks really good running straight, and he can make his cuts. It's when you're in the hole, it's when you're blocking, it's those things. So we're not going to know on him, but we do feel really confident with the other two kids. And Eric, I wouldn't get too worked up on whether it's 2-3. I would really say it's really 2A, 2B with those kids right now, Fleminster and Diggs. As it relates to your second question, in terms of other players that may be ascending that we haven't really talked about, I think it's been a process that, as we've kind of moved during the season, that guys are continued to learn and continue to grow. But I would say that, Kia has definitely picked up more of our defense and is feeling more comfortable. I would say Riley, those are the kids that are getting. Xavier Watts is getting closer to breaking through. Rubio is showing some real signs of picking up the things that we want him to do. So I'm pleased with the development of some of the younger players that if they're pressed into playing time, and I would add Rocco to that list. We're kind of getting at that point where, 4 games, you got to pick your 4 games now. And, do you just use 4 games and just say, all right, you play these 4. And we feel like on the offensive line, Rocco is really close. He's made great progress, but we want to look towards continuity on that group as well. But yeah, he's made really good progress, Rocco, on the offensive line too.
We'll go to Patrick Engel next. Patrick, go right ahead.
Brian, real quick on Xavier Watts. I assume he's still working at Rover there, or was that?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's been at the nickel Rover position. He's cross training. We've got him playing actually a couple of positions. We've got him at nickel. We've got him at safety. And we're really trying to add a lot of work to him because we want to get him on the field. So, this is like preseason camp for him, and he's getting a lot of work right now at both safety and nickel as well.
Angelo DiCarlo, you're next.
Brian, what are you expecting the atmosphere to be like, and how excited is your group to play a night game in Notre Dame Stadium? Obviously, last year, limited crowds. This year you've played during the day at home, but the first time to play in this type of environment since 2019 at home.
Yeah, Angelo, I don't run our ticketing office or marketing. My job is to win football games and put ourselves in a position where we put a good product on the field. I think we do that. I have to hope that, that people want to come out and see our football team play. And that's my job. The expectations would be that this is an incredible atmosphere playing USC, where we haven't played them at home in a while. And everybody's coming out. We're on break, right? And so our students traditionally come back for this game, and I would expect that. But I have a job to do, and that's put a good product on the field. I think we have done that. The rest is up to, what our fan base wants to do. And I hope they want to come out and see this football team play, because it's a gritty, gutsy group of guys that, just play really hard for 4 quarters. So I hope they come out and see them play.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's Look Ahead, where we highlight Notre Dame's upcoming opponent. Coach, at the midway point, you just had a chance to have a bye week. What'd you guys do with the bye week to try to prepare for the second half of the season?
Well, I think there's a lot of things on your list. One, you want to kind of look at some of the things that you need to get better at. So we took a day and kind of did a little, self-scout, if you will. Look at some of the offensive structures that needed to get better, defensive structures. So we spent a day doing that on the practice field. We took a day to introduce USC. spent a day in the weight room, and then gave the guys a chance to kind of catch up a little bit and take a deep breath. They were in midterms, so we're in our midwinter break now. So I think all those things needed to happen. And then we got on the road recruiting. So a little bit of all those things happened during the off week, and I think we were able to check all those boxes.
Notre Dame, USC, one of the best rivalries in all of sports. To have it back after it was not here last year in your stadium, just what's the excitement level going into this matchup?
Yeah, it raises to the highest level. I mean, it's just that traditional rivalry that. Look, you want to be independent, and one of the reasons why you're independent is to play this kind of game. So we're certainly excited. I know they are, and our guys have all their attention towards playing a very talented football team.
Coach, as always, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Great, thank you.
You have been listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com.